This is the story of how Cardi B's first ever headlining arena tour went millions of dollars over budget before the first show even happened. The Little Miss Drama Tour is scheduled to kick off in February of 2026 and was supposed to be Cardi's long-awaited victory lap after 7 years without a sophomore album. But just days into official rehearsals, instead of hyping up the tour and getting fans excited, Cardi admitted to the world that the entire production was facing a financial crisis, so serious that she might have to dip into her personal bank account to prevent the whole thing from collapsing. For an artist with her level of fame, platinum records, brand deals, and massive streaming numbers, hearing her say that publicly was shocking. Today, we're breaking down exactly what went wrong, why the tour is running out of money, how motherhood plays into the struggle, and what's really at stake if this tour succeeds or fails just weeks from now. The moment everything went public happened on January 7, 2026, when Cardi went live on Instagram from rehearsal in Los Angeles. It was only day 2, barely enough time for dancers to learn their first formations, but Cardi wasn't smiling, and she wasn't talking about how excited she was for fans to see the show. Instead, she revealed that she was already over a couple of $1 million on the tour budget, and that her team had been forced to redo the financials over and over again. To put this in perspective, when artists say they are a couple million over budget, that's not the kind of setback you resolve by trimming a few costume changes or reducing pyrotechnics on 2 songs. That means the production cost estimates were off by a massive margin, and that the spending has spiraled so quickly that the tour isn't financially stable yet, even though no audience has stepped foot into a venue. Cardi admitted that her choices were either to go find the money somewhere else or pay out of her own pocket for elements she wasn't willing to cut. That kind of vulnerability is almost unheard of for artists in her position, and it immediately set the internet on fire with speculation about how bad things really were behind the scenes. One moment that stood out during her live stream was when Cardi told fans directly not to expect a Beyoncé-level production, saying, "I ain't no damn Beyoncé, don't be expecting any of that. I don't got that production money, but I'm gonna give it all I got." This was an unusual and extremely calculated statement. In an era where fans measure tours against the Renaissance World Tour, the Eras Tour, and the Weeknd's After Hours Till Dawn stadium shows, expectations for live performance production are higher than ever. Beyoncé's show featured arena-sized LED screen installations, custom robotic lighting rigs, massive choreography ensembles, multiple costume changes, and theatrical staging that cost tens of millions of dollars to build, transport, and rehearse. Cardi knew she could not compete at that production scale without bankrupting the tour, so she did something rare in pop culture. She lowered expectations before the show even launched. It was a preemptive strike against criticism, wrapped in honesty, so that no one could say she tricked them into expecting something the tour was never designed to deliver. To understand how the budget spiraled out of control so quickly, you have to understand the scale of the Little Miss Drama Tour itself. This is Cardi's first ever headlining arena tour, not a theater run, not a club tour, not a co-headline situation where costs could be shared. We're talking full arenas across North America, roughly 35 to 36 dates spanning February through April 2026. The venues include major markets like Las Vegas, Los Angeles, New York City, Toronto, Miami, and Atlanta, with multiple nights at high-profile stops such as the Kia Forum and Madison Square Garden. These venues seat anywhere from 15,000 to more than 20,000 fans per night, and audiences buying arena-level tickets expect arena-level experiences. That expectation forces artists to invest heavily in lighting, screens, audio, stage movement, choreography, props, backline equipment, costumes, transport trucks, stagehands, rigging specialists, venue staff coordination, merch production, and travel logistics for dozens or even hundreds of people. The public sees the glamorous part on stage for 2 hours. Behind the scenes, it's a small army and a moving city that has to be rebuilt in every single town, every single night. Even with that enormous overhead, ticket sales were actually doing fairly well. By late 2025, the tour had already sold around 81% of its total capacity. In the touring world, that's respectable, especially for a first-time headlining arena run. But the problem wasn't ticket demand, it was the cost side of the equation. Not all tickets were sold out, which means revenue wasn't fully locked in, and January 2026 still showed available seats in most cities. If a tour doesn't hit sellout numbers, VIP packages, meet and greets, and exclusive merch sales become crucial to fill the gap and push the production into profitability.
Cardi had all those premium tiers in place, but the spending was rising even faster than the money coming in. That creates a nightmare scenario for promoters, a tour that looks successful from the outside but loses money on every show. To understand why this tour matters so much, we have to rewind to September 2025, when Cardi finally released her long-awaited second album, Am I the Drama? This album arrived 7 full years after Invasion of Privacy took over the music world in 2018. In modern pop culture, 7 years between albums is borderline unheard of, especially in hip-hop where momentum matters and the public moves on quickly. Fans questioned whether she would ever drop again. Critics wondered if she had lost interest in music, and the industry speculated about whether her time had passed. Instead, she delivered a massive debut week, landing at #1 on the Billboard 200 with 200,000 equivalent units. It wasn't as big as her debut, but it still broke records. Cardi became the only female rapper in history to debut her first 2 albums at #1. The album went multi-platinum, put 18 tracks on the Hot 100 at the same time, and dominated playlists across platforms. However, there's a harsh truth about the modern music business. Streaming does not pay like physical albums did 20 years ago. Even the most successful records rarely generate the kind of revenue that artists once banked from CD sales. Today, the real financial engine of the music industry isn't albums, it's touring. That's why the Little Miss Drama Tour isn't just a promotional victory lap, it's the business model. It's the opportunity to convert hype into real money. It's where profit gets made or lost. And it's where an artist proves whether they belong on the same tier as the names who dominate arenas and stadiums year after year. But for Cardi, there's an added layer that makes this situation far more complicated than it appears. On November 4th of 2025, she gave birth to her 4th child. When tour rehearsals began, her baby was barely out of the newborn stage. When opening night arrives on February 11th, the child will be just over 3 months old. On top of that, Cardi has 3 other young children at home, including 2 from her previous relationship with Offset and her newborn son with New England Patriots wide receiver Stefon Diggs. Managing a newborn alone is difficult. Managing a newborn while rehearsing choreography for 2-hour arena performances, while recovering from childbirth, while handling media attention, while juggling 4 children and a high-profile relationship, while dealing with a multi-million-dollar tour budget crisis, that's a level of pressure most people can barely imagine. Cardi admitted in rehearsals that the physical demand was overwhelming. On just the second day of practice, she told fans, "It's a lot. On top of that, it's a lot of dance moves I gotta do, and I'm just ready to go home." But in classic Cardi fashion, she also made it clear that she doesn't quit easily. She was back in the gym just 1 week after giving birth, pushing her body when most women are still healing. She said by the time the tour begins, she'd be doing splits, somersaults, backflips, and handstands. Whether that was exaggeration or pure determination didn't matter. The message was the same: she's going to fight for this tour. What makes the emotional stakes even heavier is that this isn't the first time pregnancy interfered with her touring plans. Back in 2018, during her breakout debut era, Cardi was forced to cancel multiple festival appearances, including Rolling Loud, Wireless Festival, and international dates across Europe because she gave birth to her daughter that summer. Those cancellations cost her major momentum at a moment when the entire industry expected her to solidify her touring reputation. She later admitted she felt like she was letting everyone down and opened up about postpartum depression and the fear she experienced. That unresolved chapter in her career has lingered for years. The Little Miss Drama Tour represents the redemption arc, the chance to finally prove she can carry a major tour as a mother and as a global artist. It's the moment she's been waiting for since 2018.
However, on January 7, 2026, Cardi B went live on Instagram from rehearsals in Los Angeles and dropped a bomb that immediately went viral. She revealed that the Little Miss Drama Tour was already several $million over budget, despite the fact that rehearsals had just begun. She said, quote, "I'm over a couple of million on my budget tour. I gotta go find the money, or I'd have to put some of my own money for things that I want." End quote. Fans were shocked for multiple reasons. First, because Cardi has always stylized herself as someone who is financially smart and business savvy, constantly talking about investments, taxes, and checks clearing. But second, because people assumed that if a major artist is headlining a tour, a budget crisis shouldn't even be possible. Isn't that what labels are for, or sponsors or promoters? The reality, which most casual fans don't know, is that modern tours are incredibly expensive, and most artists, even famous ones, do not actually profit until after the first few legs of the tour. Cardi also made it clear there had already been multiple budget recalculations, saying every type of tour budget that the tour had, like they keep trying to redo the numbers, redo the production every other week because things are just so expensive. Instead of presenting herself as a flawless superstar, she sounded more like a frustrated project manager trying to make the math work. She joked that fans needed to temper expectations by reminding them, "I ain't no damn Beyoncé. I don't got that production money, but I'm gonna give it all I got." It was a surprisingly grounded statement from someone the internet often paints as an overhyped, never-wrong celebrity figure. Here's the part fans don't always see. Arena tours are not just big concerts. They're traveling productions closer to Broadway shows or mini-movies with moving parts, payrolls, logistics, and teams that often exceed 100 to 150 people. Cardi isn't touring tiny clubs or 2,000-seat theaters. She's booked a 35 to 36-date arena run across North America, including 2 nights in iconic venues like Madison Square Garden and the Kia Forum. Arenas seat anywhere from 15,000 to over 20,000 people depending on configuration, and when fans are paying $200 to $500 per ticket for floor seats and VIP experiences, they expect spectacle, multiple costume changes, choreography, dancers, staging, screens, pyro, and visuals that look like money. And unlike festivals where artists get paid up front and don't have to bring production, headlining artists shoulder nearly all of those costs themselves. That means Cardi must pay for dancers, choreographers, tour managers, lighting directors, video crews, security, trucking fleets, stage design, sound design, costume designers, and rehearsal space long before a single ticket is scanned. Add on tour buses, flights, hotel rooms, per diems, insurance, merch overhead, and VIP staffing, and even with strong ticket sales, you can easily end up in the red until the back half of the tour. Cardi's openness about the numbers revealed something that's usually kept behind the curtain. Fans love to brag about sold-out dates and chart positions, but sold out does not automatically mean profitable. Plenty of artists, including big names, have finished seemingly successful tours with little to no net profit. That's why the Cardi budget crisis immediately turned into a larger conversation about whether she was biting off too much too soon, and whether she should have eased into touring culture instead of jumping straight into the deep end of arena touring with no previous headlining experience. Now let's talk about ticket sales. As of late 2025, the tour was sitting at around 81% capacity. That's very respectable for a debut arena run, but not sold-out levels like Beyoncé, Taylor Swift, or Bad Bunny. Cardi's team did implement VIP tiers, meet-and-greet packages, premium floor pricing, and merch bundles, all smart strategies to maximize revenue. But here's the tricky thing. The profit margin for VIP experiences has shrunk post-pandemic because costs for security, insurance, and staffing have gone up. In addition, most promoters don't fully front production budgets anymore because they don't want to absorb risk, so artists take on more liability to get the production they want. That means Cardi's production costs ballooned faster than the VIP revenue. She would have to either cut production, seek additional financing, or go out of pocket. Her comments strongly implied that scaling back was already happening, and that brings up a new problem. When fans pay for an arena experience, scaling down production can backfire because audiences don't like to feel shortchanged. Arena tour consumers expect spectacle, especially when you're competing against a touring market where pop girls like Dua Lipa, Olivia Rodrigo, and Doja Cat have been praised for highly stylized, polished production value that feels intentional and artistic. Cardi isn't necessarily known for high-level stage artistry. She's known for personality, energy, and spectacle. So if spectacle becomes too expensive, or if fans perceive the visuals as cheapened, critics will weaponize it and say, "See, she's not a real arena artist." And whether people like it or not, perception matters in pop touring. It affects press coverage, social media virality, and brand positioning for future live deals. To really understand why Cardi is pushing through this tour despite the stress, the numbers, and the backlash, you have to go back to 2018, when Cardi released Invasion of Privacy and exploded into mainstream success. She was poised to become one of the highest demand festival headliners almost immediately. But then she became pregnant with her first child and had to cancel most of her major festival slots. Cardi later admitted in multiple interviews that she felt like she had let promoters and fans down. In her own words, she felt she was watching her era fade before she could fully tour it. For most artists, touring is how you extend an album cycle, build fan loyalty, and cement your status as a serious performer rather than just a charting act. Cardi missed that opportunity. So even though her debut album was wildly successful, chart-wise, award-wise, and certification-wise, she never got to do the standard world tour victory lap that most pop and rap artists rely on for legitimacy. Fast forward 7 years to her second album, Am I the Drama, released in 2025 after one of the longest sophomore delays in female rap history, the album debuted strong, #1 on the Billboard 200, over 200,000 units first week, and multiple Hot 100 charting entries. Cardi had the charts, the buzz, and the attention. What she didn't have was the tour. So for Cardi, the Little Miss Drama Tour isn't just a rollout, it's a redemption arc. It's her chance to prove she can do the one thing critics claimed she couldn't, command arenas as a solo headliner. That makes the financial crisis sting more because it's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's the price of validation in a genre where women are constantly told they don't sell tickets, don't move live audiences, and don't sustain touring careers. As if the budgeting chaos wasn't enough, Cardi entered rehearsal just 2 months after giving birth to her 4th child on November 4th, 2025. That means by opening night, the baby will barely be 3 months old. Cardi admitted publicly that by day 2 of rehearsals, she already wanted to go home. Fans sympathized, but critics didn't. Social media immediately split into camps. Some argued that Cardi was being irresponsible for taking on such a physically demanding project so soon after childbirth. Others argued that mothers are constantly expected to choose between ambition and motherhood, and that men in music never get scrutinized this way. But then another layer got added, the image discourse. Cardi wasn't just rehearsing, she was also under fire for how she looked, how her body had changed, and how the surgeries she'd admitted to in the past were reacting to pregnancy weight fluctuations. Online beauty expectations, especially in hip-hop, are brutal toward women. People forget how much pressure there is for female artists to snap back, look perfect, and present a certain aesthetic while also delivering choreography and breath control that many male rappers don't even attempt. Cardi attempted to diffuse the criticism by leaning into humor. She told fans that by opening night she'd be doing splits, somersaults, backflips, and handstands. But the joke didn't stop the commentary, and commentary around Cardi's image during this era touched multiple sensitive topics: colorism, desirability politics, surgery culture, femininity hierarchies, and how certain fan bases treat motherhood differently depending on the artist. At the same time Cardi was preparing for her tour, her relationship with NFL player Stefon Diggs was also under constant public scrutiny. The relationship wasn't problematic because it existed, celebrities date athletes all the time, but because the internet began to dissect the racial and beauty dynamics surrounding Diggs' dating history. When people noticed that Diggs had previously dated multiple darker-skinned black women, it sparked a discourse about whether he was upgrading, downgrading, or trading up, which opened the door to a whole avalanche of colorism debate. Cardi has always been sensitive about these topics because her rise to fame coincided with major online conversations about who gets